All right, here we go, Ben.
Here we go.
Is this your first one, right?
Yep.
All right.
Very not excited.
So we should go, is it should we go season 2? If now Ben's involved, or we'll just.
No, I'm just a film.
Okay, episode 1.
Episode 1,
season 2. You want or episode 17?
There we go.
There we go. Okay. You are though. Marco and I've talked about whether we should call it pastors and hoodies.
I did not know that was a thing.
Yeah, so you're good to go.
Okay, so I fit in. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So we got Ben here. Part of the reason for that is Marco had some stuff, just family and work that comes up that makes it hard for him to get into the office this week. Which I think just a reminder, 2 things of how much we appreciate the non-staff guys as
Absolutely.
the 2 staff guys putting in all the hours they do and the attention and the work when they've got other responsibilities. Second one is it reminds us why his heart is toward planning a church in Richmond, because their family makes a haul many times, 3 times a week.
Yeah.
To be able to be a part of our church. So we appreciate that. And he was like, you know what, let's bring in a ringer.
Yeah,
like this podcast needs life. So we brought in, rain some threes.
Yeah,
let's go deep.
I am that guy.
There you
go.
So
I'm glad to be here.
All right. So if you have questions about, Ben's hair care, your free throw shooting form, anything like that, you can text those to 937-404-1207.
Yeah, and I do know Marshall called me out on my Christmas sweater. I thought about wearing it.
I liked the Christmas sweater.
I liked it as well.
Malachi bought me a Christmas sweater last year and I can't find it. And so I got to find that thing.
Is that a bad thing?
It's pretty ugly. I'm not disappointed I lost it. So, all right. So anyway, we were week 3 of Advent.
Yeah.
And we did have a couple questions sent in. And so.
Yeah, I'll start with this one. In Luke chapter 1, verse 6, it says that Elizabeth and Zechariah were righteous and blameless before the Lord. So it's easy for us to view our salvation almost as a work-based morality kind of thing. You do good things, but you kind of unpack something a little bit different for us. Could you kind of explain a little bit deeper what it means for us to be righteous and blameless before God?
Yeah. That was kind of the heart, hopefully, of the sermon.
Yeah.
Was our natural man's orientation. And you see this throughout the Bible. Yep. Like you can go back to Genesis 4, sin enters into the world and Cain is going to offer his own kind of sacrifice to God.
Absolutely.
You get to, is it Genesis 10, Tower of Babel? Yep. Is it 11? One of the 2? What's man doing? They're trying to build a tower that reaches up to God. You get all the way to the New Testament. That's what the Pharisees are doing. They're taking the law and their rules, and they're making even extra rules because they're trying to build their way to reach to God. And so our natural inclination since the fall has been to think that righteousness is achieved by us, and we perform in such a way where then God grants us, maybe almost even as obligated. We feel like, hey, I did my part, you do your part, and give me salvation. And the scriptures come at it from a completely different angle. So we read, I think Marco and I even talked about this a couple weeks ago. We read the story of Noah, and we go, hey, Noah built an ark. He did what God told him to do, so God saved him.
Yeah.
Except for Genesis 6:1 says Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Yeah. Like the reason why Noah was called to build the ark was grace. The reason why Noah faithfully did it was graciously given unto him that faith, so that then God saved him through that. So the same with Elizabeth and Zechariah, and the same with Mary the week before. The same, we're going to deal with the same kind of description for Simeon and Anna this coming Sunday.
Okay. And
I think we can fall off the horse 2 ways. We can go so hard on like thinking we're accomplishing our righteousness, it does become a works-oriented salvation. Or we can be tempted, I think, especially as teachers and preachers, to go so far the other way that, hey, it's nothing that you've done, that we ignore the fact that a life that's been changed by Christ will look different. Yeah. And so Zacharias and Elizabeth did look righteous, holy, blameless, of good reputation to the others that were around them. Yeah. We don't ignore that, but it's not they did that first and so God responded. It's because God reached out to them.
Yeah. They
then live in a way that's different.
So why do you think prosperity is so easy for us to fall into in that category? And might be a loaded question.
No, I think I think faith is hard because it's not tangible.
No.
If you give me, specific jobs to do. That's why I think the religious system that says, here, you need to pray this certain way, you need to give to this charitable organization, you need to do this act of sacrifice, and you'll be in good standing with God. It gives me a checklist.
No.
I can check off. Faith is hard because even our faith, it's not on the base, it's not on the quality of our faith, right?
Yeah.
It's on the object of our faith. So even in those days I'm struggling and I've got doubts and I'm faltering, I'm still saved by him.
Yeah.
And my but I can know that my faith feels weak.
Yeah.
And so I want to grab out for something else.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's one side of it. I think the other side of it is the system of faith. I think this is why God does it. The system of grace and faith allows us to boast in nothing but him.
No.
And it's also tempting for us to gravitate toward a system that can help me feel better about me than you.
Yeah.
Like it becomes a competition. Hey, I'm more righteous than Ben. I mean,
Yeah.
I think most of our church would probably.
That kind of hurts. No, it's kind of like,
yeah.
No, even we're doing in Colossians and Elevate, and it was kind of the same thing. You know, we're looking at these people who say, you know, we're holier because we keep these rules, and I think it's because we want that tangible. So
and that's good, because I think the epistles, we have to remember those are written to the church.
Yeah.
So he's not just saying, hey, you need to get saved because you're tempted to see your works as your salvation. He's writing to believers and saying, you're tempted to fall back into the same old trick. Like, you know, your salvation came through grace by faith, but you're tempted to go to other sources.
Yeah.
We're all tempted still with that.
Yeah. And that kind of leads us into the next question. Actually, a student asked me this, and I thought I would just bring it to you. And you wrote it in a much better way than I asked it to you. So I appreciate that. You did mention how when Christ was on the cross and the Lord turned his face away, you know, and you kind of went into describing, like, it wasn't that he didn't see the crucifixion, it was that he bore our sin. It wasn't looked upon it with favor.
Right. And
you kind of talked about grace and favor, you know, what that means. So as someone who is saved, what does the Father look away from us when we sin, or how would you describe that?
Yeah. No, so that's the beauty. R.C. Sproul preached a message at a Together for the Gospel years ago that was called, like, the curse motif of Scripture. Okay. I was like, what in the world is this going to be? And he really unpacked, like, when you get into the law, there's a lot of blessing and cursing. Like, Deuteronomy ends kind of like, if you'll obey the Mosaic covenant, this is what's going to come to you. If you disobey, these are the curses that are going to come upon you. The rest of the Old Testament basically lays out, guess which we're going to do. Right. And so what do we deserve to have fall upon us is all of the curses. One of the things the law says, and Paul quotes it in Galatians, where he says, you know, cursed is any man who hangs on a tree, is that it's not you become cursed by hanging on the tree. It was that the hanging on the tree was like the sign that one must be cursed, right? He ultimately points that to Jesus. Yeah. And so Jesus, it's another way of saying Jesus takes all of our sin and Jesus takes all of our punishment, is that Jesus takes the curse deserved by us upon himself. And so there's a fascinating element to the grace of God, that because of what Jesus has done, I believe that even as we are sinning, the Father is not participating in our sin, but he's also not turning his favor away from us. Like, he still has his favor poured out on us, because that sin has been paid for already. And so the idea of, that's why it was so profound. And that's, you know, I talk about the different excruciating elements of Jesus' sacrifice. You know, it wasn't just the physical death on the cross and how horrific crucifixion is. It's that the Trinity eternally had this beautiful reciprocal relationship. And now all of a sudden the Father is putting the curse upon the Son. I mean, he's turning from him at that point. And so, I think hopefully that encourages us, especially when temptation's really strong, to go, man, I'm not on my own right now. The Father has not turned, he hasn't seen me back myself into this corner and turned his face away from me and said, you're on your own. You deserve whatever bad thing comes upon you. The Father's still looking at me with grace and favor because of Jesus. And so hopefully that can even help call me out of that sin when I'm tempted.
I think that's a good word, especially when we look at grace. You know, we can have that temptation to even look at grace as like, that's my get out of free jail. And I think when we experience grace, that causes the change.
Yeah.
It's an outward change of the heart, not so much of just my actions.
Yeah. I mean, that was even part of the outline for the sermon. Grace begets faith, and faith begets obedience.
Yeah.
If we don't see obedience, it's not, I think this is maybe gets back to your original question about, you know, how do we see this or whatever. If we don't see obedience, it's not because, oh, we're focusing too much on grace and we need to add a little more fear.
Yeah.
Like that's what Martin Luther grew up in. He talks about how the priest would say, like, they would watch the church, and if the people in the church seemed to be too driven by fear, they'd start to talk about God's grace and love. Yeah. And when the people started to drift too far into sin, they'd start talking about God's anger and judgment. And so you lived your life constantly like swerving on a snowy road. Yeah. Really what our answer needs to be is, if we're a believer and we're struggling with just, or maybe we're not struggling with sin, okay, we're content with our sin, yeah, and we're just living in it. The answer is, we've broken down that grace has not led to deep faith that calls us to obedience. We're teaching short, yeah, of what the Bible teaches, not that, oh, we need to hammer people with fear, yeah, you know, that are believers. It's like, no. Now there can be the consequences, yeah, you know, 1 Corinthians 3, you might stand before God with nothing to show for it. Yeah. But you know, person's still professing Christ, and not, I guess, living in the unrepentant sin we see, like to the church discipline level, like with our kids, we don't seek to try and get our kids to obey by telling them they could be kicked out of our family. Yeah. You know, but we try and re-encourage, like, we're here and we love you and we support you. Nothing you do is ever going to cause us to deny you, but yeah, there's a better way. Yeah, you know? Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I have one more question for you. And this one had a little bit of speculation. So okay, feel free to do whatever you want with this. It says, when the neighbors and the relatives in Luke 1:58 came to rejoice the birth of John the Baptist, did nobody ask why Zechariah couldn't talk? Because in chapter 1, verse 65, fear came on all the neighbors after he was able to speak. So did they know the angel shut his mouth and made him mute, and this is why they feared? Would you please give us some more insight on what you think happened in the story behind it? Yeah, we didn't focus a ton on it because we're trying to focus on the women. But like the whole story of Zechariah is pretty interesting. You know, a priest would not be allowed to serve in the temple if they were deaf or mute. Really? Like you would be considered unclean in that condition. Oh, wow. If you go to the Old Testament, you see the requirements were really strong toward what a priest had to be like physically. Yeah. And so those setbacks of being either deaf or mute or both would keep a priest from being allowed to serve, okay, in that priestly duty. So technically, Zacharias is serving in this capacity, and the moment he's made deaf, he's made kind of unqualified for the service. Yeah. And there's an angel there. That angel could have then judged him in that uncleanliness right then and there. So the fact that he comes out, he goes in able to hear and able to speak. He had to, because he wouldn't be able to serve. He comes out not able to speak. Right away, they're going to be asking what happened. Yeah. What in, you know, and his name is John. He wrote on a tablet. So no doubt there was, I mean, we're at least talking 9 months, yeah, or more. He finishes his service as a priest. He and Elizabeth go home. She gets pregnant, baby is born. We're talking 10 months, maybe. He's probably written out what's happened. Yeah. He's maybe not shared the details of the level of his name will be John, yeah, like he did with Elizabeth. Yeah. You know, but she knew what was going on to at least know that. And so I think that's what catches the attention, yeah, is it's like, you think about, okay, the guy comes out, he's not able to speak. Then all of a sudden, wait a minute, his wife, who we assume was barren, now suddenly has a pregnancy. Yeah. A baby is born. Wait, dad's still not speaking. Maybe he's never going to speak again. You know, maybe God's just, you know, and then all of a sudden he starts talking.
And it's like Jesus with the lame person, where they don't get up and learn to walk again. Like they get up and they're going. Like the next thing you see is Zechariah like sings a song. I mean, he goes right from not being able to talk to he's back at it. I think their fear is because it's clear this is divine.
Yeah.
God has done this. And then it's like a whoa. And I think that's what he even kind of says in the text is like the question then becomes is like, all right, this kid's got something special going on. Like what if the hand of God is so clearly on this to get Elizabeth pregnant, to make Zacharias mute, to give him back his voice, like clearly after 400 years of not having a prophet speaking in a capacity of thus saith the Lord, God's up to something again.
Yeah.
So
that was good. I did not know that actually about the priest. That was fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Learn something every day.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
well, that's all the
that's
questions.
it.
Yeah, it's all the questions I got.
All right. Well, we never talk about like go to your podcast platforms and rate and whatever, but you could. You could even talk about how much you love the new co-host. And
is this a permanent thing?
I don't know.
Oh,
I mean, Marco is planting a church, so I don't know what we're gonna do after that happens.
That's fair.
So hey, so we end with a closing, and I don't think you have any clue what it is. So
you
that's
say
fine. That's
and then
right.
I say driving it home.
There you go.
That's
Kind of like that. And then you want to do Marco? Marco always goes peace. But that's not yet.
Okay,
not
sorry.
yet. So I say, just remember that in Christ, all the work has been completed. We're just driving home.
Peace.